Hey, what's up, everyone? This is the Leafs Convo for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario, oakridgeford.com. I'm Norman London, Mike in Buffalo. It is Sunday, October 29th. The Leafs a 3-2 overtime loser in Nashville last night, but wrapping up a pretty successful road trip, their longest of the short season, at least to this point so far. 3-1-1, Michael, second in the Atlantic Division, just kind of doing what they're doing. Never where we want it to be, but it could be a lot worse. Good morning.
Good morning, Norm. I think the Leafs have to be happy with the result of the 5-game road trip, their longest road trip of the year, especially the way it began. Remember, it began with a bad loss against Florida, where they gave up 2 bad long goals and then played catch up the rest of the game, and then the game against Tampa Bay, where they were down 3-1 in the first period, and they pull Samsonov, bring in Wall, and Wall plugs the hole, and they are allowed to come back and get the overtime win. They didn't play great against Washington. Washington is not a good team, but Washington had a ton of shots on goal. Wall played great there. He played great against that. This is the Joseph Wall coming out tour. That's what it was. And now I'm not blaming Samsonov for the loss yesterday. Samsonov played pretty well. It just seemed that the Leafs had a number of chances that they couldn't convert on. They got a couple goals. They needed a couple more. And of course, the ex-Leaf factor always comes in whenever they play somebody. The Luke Schenn would have scored a hat trick had he played in this game. But Ryan O'Reilly scores a pair of goals, and then Roman Josi scores the goal in overtime. 7 out of a possible 10 points, I think they would have signed up for it at the beginning of the road trip, and now they play, I believe, 5 of the next 6 at home. So they've got to make hay at home, which traditionally they've been able to, but in the past it's always been a struggle early in the season. So we'll see what happens.
It's going to be a short program today. Lots of things on the go as we approach Halloween. Norm in London, Mike in Buffalo. Oak Ridge Ford is our sponsor. Leading up to, again, October 31st, we have big sale going on, especially on F-150, massive money from the manufacturer in terms of incentive, and we're chipping in thousands of dollars to get you on the road at a reasonable cost, of course, in North America's best-selling vehicle. Let me know at Norm at Oak Ridge Ford on Instagram. I would appreciate you reaching out to me if you have any questions about your potential next car buying possibility. And you know that I'll get you the best deal on the planet too. Ryan O'Reilly looked pretty comfortable yesterday, Mike, getting out of Toronto following that short stint during the playoffs earlier this year. Reading a Gord Stellick column in the Toronto Star, you get the sense that no hard feelings, but Toronto isn't for everyone. And Ryan O'Reilly looks really comfortable down in Nashville.
Yeah, I mean, he was not very comfortable in Buffalo, and Buffalo is not Toronto in terms of a hockey market, but it is high pressure. And, he didn't like the direction of the organization in Buffalo. He actually wanted to get out of Colorado. So it seemed like the places where he's been most comfortable were St. Louis, where,
right,
it's a hockey market. It's been in the league since 1967, but you can sort of disappear into the woodwork in St. Louis, and now Nashville, where, he's a guitar player. He's got he's got a family. Yeah, I think it was just a better fit for him. I guess the Leafs offered him just as much money. They wanted to bring him back. But it did, and he got along well with his teammates. Apparently they all went out to dinner on Friday night. All the relations and everything between the two sides were good. It just was a better fit for him. And it's not for everybody. So I get it.
Right. And that's okay. Even if you wanted to be in Toronto, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to end up there. And, we get this sense, or we have this sense, whether it's rooted in fantasy or history, or just a completely ridiculous notion that Toronto is the place everybody wants to come. We believe that because it's the team we love, and in a market that we know is pretty robust and complicated. But this is a career for a lot of these dudes, and if they can make big money and enjoy themselves in a place where there's less pressure and a less strife, and it's not as tumultuous, why the hell wouldn't you want to go somewhere else, especially at this stage of his career? It's not like he's, at the end of it by any means, but he's certainly beyond, freshman status or in a time period where he's still trying to find his feet. This is about kind of setting himself up a little bit. We'll get to some OG commentary here in a couple of minutes, but Ilya Samsonov, I think 21 saves on 24 shots against. Not necessarily majorly impressive, but he kind of did the job. And for a guy who seems like he's in his own head, every step forward in a positive way is a good one. Oh, looks like we lost Mr. Augello there. He's having some issues with his.
No, sorry about that. I had myself muted. Sorry, I was just. Samsonov seemed to be having a little bit of a crisis of confidence. He didn't play well in that opening game against Montreal. He played okay against Minnesota. Then he gives up 2 long goals against Florida, and then 3 goals on 4 shots against Tampa. He basically said, my play has been crap, and there's a lot of pressure on him. It's his walk year in free agency. If he has a really good year, he sets himself up either in Toronto or someplace else on a big deal. So there's a lot of pressure, and I think right now, up until today, he was adequate yesterday. He didn't make a big monstrous save,
Right.
but he was solid. He didn't let any bad goals in. The 2 O'Reilly goals, I think, were tip-ins, and he had not much of a chance on the OC goal in overtime. So,
Right.
They will sign up for that kind of effort from Samsonov. I just think at this point, I'm not saying they're going to go with Joseph Woll's the number 1. I think right now it's going to be whoever the hot goalie is going to play, and it's going to be pretty much a 50-50 split, or maybe 45-37 or something like that. Woll's going to get a lot of rope because Samsonov's a free agent at the end of the year. Woll's under a contract for another year at less than $800,000. And
Right.
for a team that is up against the cap wise, to have your starting goalie be somebody under $1 million is something that might be too good to pass up. So that's what I think is working here.
So you're saying there's some financial implication to who plays and who doesn't right now, Mike?
Well, right now, this season, it's going to be who's playing the best. But I also think that there is definitely an idea here, seeing how Wallace played early in the season. Let's see how he plays with a number of games. We have to know whether this guy can be our number 1. So, I think that there's, at the absolute worst, barring injury, it's going to be pretty much an equal split of the 2 goalies, but whoever's hot and whoever's playing well will play.
Patrick G. Mafia, welcome back to the show, bud. We could be Edmonton 1-5-1. Pretty ugly. Connor McDavid during the broadcast last night, he admitted it's been a terrible start, as bad as it can go. But again, Mike, if we're on fire, remember, it's still early. When you suck and you have lots of talent, remember, it's still early. Patrick G. Mafia as well. Sammy not getting 3 of 5, how he's playing at the moment. Are we into the point right now, as early as it is in the season, like barely a month in, where we're going to ride a hot hand already? Don't you want to get both of these guys integrated properly into the right headspace, feeling good, feeling confident, and then you make your decision based on who you think is going to rise to the occasion ahead of that given game?
Ideally, you want to do that, but you also, and everybody has different statistics about American Thanksgiving or about November 1st. But I think it was Elliot Friedman said, at November 1st, if you're not in a playoff spot, you have a 15% chance of making the playoffs. So If you're in a playoff spot, if you're in one of the 2 wild cards or top 3 in your division, you have an 85% chance of making the playoffs.
That's crazy.
Getting everybody in the right mind space and getting everybody work is important, sure. But what's most important is piling up and compiling points early in the year and not making it almost impossible for you to catch up. So
I just don't like the idea of alienating somebody because you've got this new shiny object that everybody wants to focus on. Oh, look, Joseph Woll's my favorite Maple Leaf right now, right? And if he gets hot, great. But is he the second coming of Carey Price? Maybe, but that remains to be seen. I just don't want him to be on this mega roll, then hit a wall Unintended.
I,
But and then have to, call on the guy who we've just kind of left it stranded on the end of the bench because he's just not cool anymore. You know what I'm saying, Mike?
I
I
don't
want
see.
both of these guys to be in a good place to help benefit this team.
Well, I don't think it's like who's cool. I think it really is, who's playing better. And right now, Samsonov has been struggling, and Wall has been lights out.
Mhm.
So, I mean, if I'm a coach, I'm leaning to the guy who's lights out. Now, that's to say that I'm not going to need the other guy to play well. I mean, last year, Matt Murray played well for a time. Matt Murray
Right.
saved their bacon when their defense was hurt. We'll get to the defense in a minute. But Matt
Yeah.
Murray, when Victor Mete and like guys like that were playing, half the defense was Toronto Marlies, and Justin Hall and Mark Giordano were playing 26 minutes a night. Matt Murray was the goalie who saved their butt last year. And
Right.
then he got hurt, and Samsonov stepped. You need more than one goalie to step up. And, down the line, they may need
That's what I'm
Martin
saying.
Jones. Yeah, they may need Martin Jones to play quality games. But I do think that early in the season, you play who's best. And right now, Joseph Wall's playing better.
Donnie does dishes. Good morning. I'm here listening with a cup of Kicking Horse coffee. And you're kicking butt there, Donnie. Thank you very much for being with us. Wilfred Witzke. Sammy, brutal to watch. Okay. Mike V, ride Wall. Put the points in the bank. We'll need them in the dog days of winter. I mean, this assumption that we're just throwing him in the next game, he's going to be, Ken Dryden at peak. Let's just be cautious here. I mean, he's been playing well, but one, shitty ounce of puck luck, and things start going the other way. My concept here is that I want two guys both feeling good about their game and both reliable at any point. But again, that's pie in the sky. Pat Mafia, you're right, Norm. Want them both happy, but in time. Let's see if we get another comment in here. And no, that's pretty much about it. Mr. Captain 93, send Lilia down on a conditioning stint and call up Jones and ride Wall. So this is a good transition from what's going on with the goaltenders into a defensive group, Mike, that I think we're going to be focusing on for pretty much the entire season, whether it's lackluster play, guys trying really hard but not being able to fully come up with the prowess that's required, and or players who are one leg in the infirmary and one leg trying to establish some kind of momentum in the game.
Well, I mean, it was the greatest area of concern for me going into the season was their lack of depth and lack of an addition on defense. I thought that the number one target for this team in the offseason was to get a top line or top four blue liner. They couldn't make that happen, obviously, because they couldn't find a deal in trading Nylander. That's probably not going to happen now. Like I said, I've sort of fallen back to the position. He's either going to sign with the Leafs or he's going to walk in free agency. I don't see the ability of them to be able to trade him and get the value for him based on the way he's playing right now. But their number 7 defenseman was Simon Bedwa, who they picked up off the scrap heap from Anaheim. And he's not a terrible defenseman, but you saw what he did during the preseason, which was take a lot of dumb penalties, and he was a big guy and who was getting caught out of position. Topi Niemelä is not ready. He's just, he's barely 3 months into a North American career. So they call up William Lagesson when Jake McCabe gets injured earlier in the road trip. And the good news is that the injury to McCabe, he played like 10 seconds against Dallas. The injury is supposedly not serious. So, but still, if it's a lower body, like a muscle, like a groin or a knee or something like that, it's probably going to be a week or two. Last night, Liljegren gets slammed into the boards in the second period, upper body injury. It looked like he sort of, it was a shoulder, maybe a slight separation or bruise or something like that. He was out the rest of the game, and they had to go with 5 defensemen again. Now, if he's out for a significant period of time, and all Sheldon Keefe said after the game was upper body injury, don't have any more information. That's the normal. So the thing is, You're talking now about calling up Simon Benoit, and you're talking about playing Simon Benoit and William Lagesson and playing Giordano over 20 minutes and, loading minutes on Riley and Brody and Klingberg. And this is the problem. This team, if they get one injury, two injuries on defense, you're talking about half of your defense being AHLers. And that's, the teams that are winning Stanley Cups like Vegas are loaded 6 deep on the blue line. So
how the hell does Brad Treliving improve this defensive core without disrupting what he has offensively? Because just looking at Klingberg, Liljegren, Riley, Giordano, Brody, Lagesson last night, God bless them. God bless them. They're trying as hard as they possibly can, but at peak health, that is a really delicate group, Mike. And we can't get into January, February, March, and wonder what the hell's going on with the defense when this problem that's simmering and will begin to bubble is staring us at the face in the face right now. So I mean, I hope that is an ongoing discussion at 40 Bay with the idea of somehow improving this defensive group, because clearly the way I'm looking at it right now, this along with the potential of these goaltenders hitting a wall are going to be the issue that will again hamper this organization and this franchise and this roster and these players from moving forward closer towards their ultimate goal. We'll have a few more words from you, Mike. I'll go through some OG comments and we'll get out of here.
In season, it's virtually impossible for them to be able to address their defense. It needed to be done in the offseason. Wow. They needed to reallocate their funds, especially in a flat cap. Right. And we know that some players are dropping off in terms of salary at the end of the year. But 2 of those guys are defensemen. Klingberg's on a 1-year deal. Brody's expiring contract. So that's $9 million in salary there, a little over $9 million that you have to replace 2 defensemen. And you're already short on defense. And, Liljegren's going to need a new contract. So this is the whole reason why, and I keep going back to it, and I know people are sick of hearing about it, but this is why the Nylander situation had to be resolved during the offseason, because they needed to convert him and his salary into help on defense. And
that conversation is over now, especially with the start he's had, and a lot of the OGs and converts just don't want us to even talk about it anymore. And they don't dictate what we say, but I get where they're coming from, Mike. This again, going back to my original point, the defensive group will be an ongoing conversation amongst ourselves, and I hope it continues at 40 Bay too. Maybe there's a rabbit in a hat somewhere that can be extracted, and this team goes to a different level. That's why we have the convo. That's why we watch this team so religiously, and that's why we break things down, and then we either forecast with excitement or sometimes expect dread. Right? That's the whole point here. Let's get through some OG and convert comments, and then we will get out of here, guys. Just a short show. Jose Duarte, good morning, guys, from Buffalo. Do you know Jose? Do you run into him at the local Wegmans?
No, have not.
Not today. Good Lord, my connection is awful today. Is there something going on with the Eastern Seaboard, Mike? Is that the issue?
I don't know. I'm operating on a hotspot right now because
it's like you're on the moon and I'm on Mars. I mean, the technology is getting worse and worse. Putting the con in the Leafs Convo. Mike is 110% on point. Mike, it's nice when people say nice things. You should see all the derogatory comments that I have to delete.
I'm not used to it.
From the page. Waldemar Walchuk, good morning, Norman. Mike, Leafs did a great job on the road trip. Nice to see Samsonov slowly coming back, holding his own. That's interesting because Arnav B, a few comments earlier, tells me that Samsonov is crap. So yeah, it's the I guess the opinion of Samsonov is all over. But the thing is, I don't like when we just jump on somebody for having a crappy game, right?
Mhm.
There's still players on your team. They're still trying really hard. Again, trying and doing can be different things in terms of results, but they're your guys. And again, Mike, we hate dudes when they're not playing well and then they do something really amazing and then all of a sudden we love them again, right? Fans are fanatics and we can be certainly erratic and bipolar in the way we view things. And again, it being early, I'd like to see Samsonov kind of come around. And even if he is taking on less work compared to Wall, because he's the young cat, he's making less, he's potentially the goalie of the future. I want to be able to know that we can go to Samsonov and have these guys ready, not necessarily to, offset one with the other due to poor play, but both of these guys capable of winning, in any circumstance they're put into. Arnav B, Marner also very rusty, making blind passes. The right now it seems like he's I wouldn't say a whipping boy, but I don't see a lot of positive commentary or reaction to what Marner's doing right now. I mean, he kind of pigeonholed himself into a spot where, regardless of how he performs, will no longer be able to buy a break with most of these fans.
No, he always starts slow. I mean, October has traditionally been a very bad month for the Leafs. They're doing better than they normally do. And Marner traditionally, I think, has started relatively slow. And then as the season goes along, I think he sort of gets more into the swing of things. I mean, right now, I think everything pales in comparison to what Matthews is doing and what Tavares is doing, which is playing great, and what Nylander is doing. I mean, they're all playing well. Marner is playing okay, but he's not playing, ridiculously at a higher level. I think that'll come, but everybody's looking for a scapegoat, and I think right now Marner is the one, because he's making more than he's making almost as much as Tavares, and he's making almost double or close to double what Nylander's making. But I think up until the last year or so, he's deserved more than what Nylander was making.
Right, and it always comes down to money, which honestly, Mike, it's incredibly unfair, because the contract signed, sealed, and delivered. That's it.
That's the reality, and folks, we'll be talking about this until next July.
Right.
The overlap of the contracts, 1 year with Nylander and Matthews and Tavares and Marner, they're all going to be on a deal next July 1st. And whether that is possible to have 4 players making over $10 million, even though the cap is only going up a little bit, that is the issue with this team. They have to address defense. They have to have they're going to need another goaltender if Samsonov goes. They cannot spend more than half of their salary cap on 4 players, no matter how much of the offense they are.
Chris Daniels, I don't see a world where we can keep Marner and Nylander. Mike, you've been talking about that for a long time. Edward Lee, when Nylander gets his money, he will revert to float mode. We certainly don't know that. I don't think he'll ever go back to float mode, because this game has evolved. And again, he's a polarizing player like Marner, right? And then you have smack dab in the middle Austin Matthews, where he can simply do no wrong. Any last comments, Mike?
I'll never say that I won't expect Mr. Willie to return. Right. Dr. Nylander has been on duty all year. I'll never say that it's impossible that Mr. Willie will return, because he's shown up in the past. Maybe he's grown out of it. We'll see. Yeah. But right now, I don't know. We'll have to watch.
And look, when you're playing well and you're affecting your team positively, that's great. That's great. I'd prefer kumbaya and watch this team just evolve and get better and be stronger and position itself for a great playoff run. As of now, I'm like most OGs and converts who are watching what's happening. We shouldn't be too concerned about offense. We know it'll always be there, and that's just tried, tested, and true with these guys. It's what's going to happen between the pipes. Can these 2 dudes who are platooning stabilize and one positively support the other, and then the defensive group? I mean, that's right there. right there on their best day. That does not look like a group of defensemen who are ready for 4 rounds. Okay. It does not. It is what it is. On Halloween, it's the Kings at Leafs, and then you've got the Leafs going into Boston on November the 2nd, and on November 4th, you have Buffalo back in Toronto. If they can go 1-1-1 in these games, Mike, I wouldn't say it's successful, but would that be sufficient?
Well, LA is doing really well so far, and Boston is the best team in the Atlantic. Buffalo's having their struggles. Buffalo will be playing their third game in 4 nights, so they need to win that game against the Sabres. But yeah, I think they'd take a split of Boston and LA, and then needing to win against Buffalo. So 2-1 would be preferable.
We got the OG Timberwolf. Can Mike please stop saying the Habs suck? Every time he does, they outplay the Leafs for a 4-game stretch. Timberwolf does have a point, Mike, but you are as fanatical in a negative way about the Habs as you are with the Leafs going the other direction. You know,
the Habs
so
suck.
I don't.
The Habs suck.
Okay, read stuff that Mike produces at HockeyBuzz.com. You can follow me at Norm at Oak Ridge Ford. We're probably going to have a midweek show, so like the content, subscribe to the channel so you know what's coming up next. The Leafs Convo, definitely here for everything that the Maple Leafs are about, and we are. It's not a bad little start to the season. It could always be better, and it could always be worse if we land somewhere in the middle and we're all enjoying ourselves. That's really all we can ask for at this point. OG's Conference. Have a great week. Talk to you soon. For Mike, I'm Norm. We're out.